I've got Michael Sherlock back. Yes, he's that policeman who just only a few months ago came out of the police force. And look, he's telling it as it is. And Michael, thank you for being so frank with us and telling us what you know.
That's right. Thanks for having me again.
Well, look, I really appreciate it. Look, just cut straight to it. I saw Hipkins, the new minister. He's only been there a matter of weeks, so we can't beat him up yet.
Yeah, not yet.
But certainly they asked him what is his prime objectives with the police. How does he see their role? And he said two factors. One is that they've got to go out there and catch the criminals that break the law.
Yep.
And two is police prevention. Now, police prevention we don't see much of, and I'm wondering if it really does occur. Is there any police prevention out there?
Does it? Yeah, it does occur. I would say that there's levels to police prevention. If we started from a frontline perspective, so the cops that you see daily, these guys do prevention roles in regards to bail checks, into making sure that people are abiding by their, like, what they're being told by the court and everything like that. And then the next level would be schools. These are people, the cops that are actually tasked to be going into schools, community cops, tasked to help local boards, local dairies, local shops, all that sort of stuff, and going into schools as well. School days might be, like everybody knows when you were a kid, or your kids know that a cop comes in and tells you about if a stranger tries to danger.
So what proportion would be prevention of crime, and what proportion would be actually catching criminals?
Well, again, like I said, there's two different levels. So frontline would be, there is an element of prevention or frontline work where you're out in the car trying to do that sort of stuff, and I would say that's probably like 30% against 70% paperwork. And then the upper level stuff is...
No, that's not what I asked. I asked what proportion is actually catching criminals and what proportion is actually preventive crime.
Ooh. Probably, I would say... Actually, I'll use the number again. 30-70. 30-70. 70%. If I'm going to take it from a frontline perspective, it would be 70% catching baddies, 30% doing preventive work. Say going in bail checks, maybe talking to dairy owners that have called up saying that they want some help or something like that. Yeah.
So we don't see a lot of that. So that's why I'm quite interested in it. But also, I heard this from another policeman one day. He said 90% of his work was actually doing paperwork, which is neither of those things.
Drastic. That's a bit drastic. But again, like I was just saying before, 30% would be working on the street. 70% would probably be paperwork.
What about the paperwork? If it's not 90%, what is it then?
30-70. I think that 30-70 is a good split.
All right, 70% is sitting in the office just doing pen and paperwork, and 30% of your actual time is then got to be split 30 and 70. So now maths are getting pretty poor here, but certainly a very small part of your time is actually out there doing prevention. Yes. Like 10% of your time.
Yeah, if we had to cut it down to something, it would probably be about 10% of your time. Yeah. If you're on your day shift,
and actually catching crims, and we're talking from your perspective, which was a constable, and it's at the front line stuff, would have been something like what 40 or 30%. No, hang on, you probably about 15% of your time.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but it's a lot to do. The reason why there's so much paperwork is because of the legality.
I mean, the courts. The justice system demands you to have all these reports in place.
Yes.
And you're putting them in place just in case it does go to court.
Yes. But the thing is, it has been sped up with you always see cops on their phones and stuff like that. All of that's been done through, that's all been sped up in the last 5 to 10 years. Cops with all these iPhones, all this sort of stuff, so that we can do it pretty much on the beat, so we don't have to come back in and do paperwork inside. We can do it all on the majority of it on our phones, so that we can stay out for longer. There is a time when
Wouldn't it be nice if you interviewed, say, I'm a witness to a crime, so I'm not a bad guy, but you've got to have a record of that witness statement, and you've got to write it all up, date, time, Max Whitehead said this, and his address is this, and you're scribbling all this down, then you've got to go back and type it all up. So what I was going to say, if you just videoed that, and put that video on file and saying, if I need it, I can extract the information from that.
I would love that. That would have saved me a load of time back when I was in the police. The nice thing is, I would like to say, is that, so witnesses are always written. Victims are written statements for like assault and all this sort of stuff, but higher level crimes do get filmed, but more like, let's say, objective material stuff gets filmed. but they've just brought in the courts. They've just changed it maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
So let's talk about it. So the majority of your work is frontline constable work would have been the smaller stuff.
Yeah.
And from that, you would have to actually physically. That's probably why you're actually doing a lot of paperwork.
My hand would cramp after doing 4 pages of written one. The nice thing is, like I was trying to say, was that the courts have changed about 4 or 5 years ago. The courts have added in this thing for family harm victims, so domestic abuse victims. Now the police can record them on a safe recording on your phone, so it all gets
audio only.
No, and video.
Oh, okay.
So that gets played in the court. I know defense lawyers hate it because what actually happens is that we turn up maybe an hour or 45 minutes after it, and we film that. Like that film starts 45 minutes after and then they'll say he or she has all the bruises still, is crying, and we're doing the interview. It paints a very good picture for the
And look, I dabble in employment law. You know, that's my occupation is. So I find that quite often the judiciary will say, right, would love to read your statement, Mr. Whitehead. Oh, that's good. Okay, now you've got a video recording of your interview, have you? Yeah, I'd rather watch that. Yeah. They prefer that.
Yeah. Oh, everybody would prefer a video. Yeah.
Minister Hipkins said today what he wants to do, because his experience of being around a few portfolios within Parliament, is to get a lot of the ministries to work together to help police.
Yeah.
Now already the Justice Department could actually help if the police and actually enable you to get out on the beat more, because that's where. That's where you're really, as a constable, would be really more appreciated by the public.
Police are always going to fight the bureaucracy tape. They're always going to fight the red tape in regards to legal stuff. You're going to have to fill out and tick the right boxes, cross the right T's and stuff like that. But it's going to be. It would be nice to try and slow that stuff down, or move some stuff so we could get out of it.
Well, you'd see the prime objective for what you're doing of all that writing down is to please the court, and really the court would prefer a video anyway. Look, Mr. Hipkins, if you're out there listening to this, Minister Hipkins, try and make sure cut some corners here. Now, work with the Justice Department. It would be helpful for the likes of you. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, what I can say is that the police work works on evidence-based policing. Evidence-based policing pretty much tells me that if I go to a job and there is hard evidence, like 3 bits of hard evidence, I know that this is going to appease the court and that we should go ahead with it. If I walk in and a lot of stuff is very wishy-washy that I know won't pass court or pass a judge, then I can't really do anything. You might have heard when you've talked to a cop, someone that's been watching has talked to a cop and said, look, we can't take, if we take this to the court, it's going to go nowhere. It's because we already know what needs to be done to appease a judge.
I tell you what, Michael, we appreciate what the work. I'm talking about the public here. Yeah. So anyone out there, you'll be with me on this, I'm sure. We'd rather see more of you on the beat, out there walking the community, because that's a deterrent in itself for crime, and it's a comfort for us that want to live a law-abiding way of life.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I would have loved to be on the street even 20%, 10% more, just to get out and actually do the proper job, really. The paperwork is the paperwork, of course, but actually getting out and serving the community.
I'm a vintage where in the 60s we did see a lot of that, but admittedly the world's changed enormously. Yeah. But in the 60s we used to see police walking the beat, as we called it in those days.
Yeah, it's hard to get the bobby on the beat anymore, especially in such a sparse city that is Auckland. Auckland's, I think I heard. Auckland's bigger than
more so,
LA.
Michael, because you're doing a lot of paperwork, sitting in the office, working away. Yeah. I think that's probably a crime in itself. So anyway, Mr. Hipkins, I think you're actually onto it. That would be really good.
If he wants to get involved with bringing, say, the justice system and maybe the education system together, so that everyone can sort of share notes and compare notes. And
the other thing, Michael, that you might get pleased about, he said he wants to actually be out and meeting more policemen. Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's what you haven't had recently, is it?
Yeah, well, with Poto, no. If he wants to come out and say hello, then definitely get involved. Get to know your staff below the management level.
Well, he made it very obvious today. It's one of his prime objectives.
Yeah. Come out. And
I hope he listens too, because that shocks me that so much of your time as a constable was actually in the office, bloody doing paperwork. And look, if we can find a way to resolve that, that would be really good. Now, I do understand the courts and why they've got to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, look, just talking about local stuff. I live on the North Shore. You do too.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful place to live. You know, we don't have a lot of crime over here.
No.
Until recently. We've had ram raids. We've had all sorts of things hitting the bloody traps here. You know, it's just absolutely frightening. But just only a couple of days ago, only a few hundred metres from here is the beach, which is the next beach adjacent, which is only about 500 metres up the road. That guy stabbed a whole lot of people, 4 people. So, Michael, it's happening right here.
I know. It's when I look back on what needed to be said and what was said afterwards and everything like that, I can see that it is an isolated. I don't want to sound like the superintendent, but it was an isolated incident that had didn't seem to be any motive. No, everybody was different ages, different ethnicity, different ways of life. Like nothing seemed to be out of a motive that this guy was going. If I had my opinion, it would be that this guy is probably having a mental episode or something has gone along the lines of he's just in having a bad
Well, we
day.
shouldn't speculate, but my partner and I, we wondered if there'd been a psychotic event because he's very cooperative now. And if I believe when they finally arrested him, he realised what he'd done, and suddenly he started crying and saying, "What about
You could probably say either it could be a mental illness or maybe a drug psychosis, or definitely seemed like some sort of psychosis. If that he can snap into it to snap out of it. I think I read something along the lines of the woman saw him walking up to her and she said he just looked out of it, like completely out of it. So that just shows to me that he probably was in some sort of psychosis.
What would happen to him, Michael? You know, have you seen? Probably this is very dramatic for Auckland. We've had a few stabbings of recent, but one of them was terror, but this guy's crazy. It's just having an event, which can happen, and very remotely. But what would happen to him?
So there's a couple of ways this will go about. So right now, I know, like you said, it said he was remanded in custody, but what the defence will try to do now is to try to declare him insane. So you know how you go through all the mental assessments and everything like that. Yeah, he would. If the defence had anything to stand on, they would declare him mentally insane, and then he would go to a mental hospital or mental institute.
Is the prime objective our safety? Because that's what I think most people watching this will be worrying about.
It is our safety, but also I don't want to be nasty, but I don't just want to throw him into a mental institute just because he's like this guy. They really need to hone in on what made him turn into this sort of person, and then figure it out from there. If he's completely sane now, then go to prison. Prison's the way to go.
Well, we get a long way better than we used to be in the old days, because those crazy people, if you can put it that way, with psychotic events would put you in jail for 30 years, and you're not allowed out. And it's the jail system's then got to handle it. A mental patient, which is
I'm a big advocate for for mental health and everything like that, and they need money. Mental health needs support badly in regards to, like you said, nowadays we know what psychosis is, we know what depression is, anxiety is, we know just the base level of them sorts of people live with this stuff day to day, with depression, with anxiety, and we know that we can talk about that. We're starting to talk about that now, whereas 10, 15 years ago, no one ever spoke out about it.
Hey, Michael, just before we sign off here, I just want to go back to preventive policing, preventive crime, not preventive policing. Do you have the right as a policeman? I mean, it doesn't seem to make any sense to me. But you've got young people. We talked about the ram raids last time, and you were saying predominantly young people. And look, Max, it's not all their fault. They come from a home of, it's maybe a broken marriage, or perhaps it's a criminal family, and so they don't know any other way. That's what you were telling me. And preventive policing, how would you manage those young people? Do you go into their household at dinner time and say, right, you and you outside, let me tell you, your mum and dad don't know what they're doing, you got to listen to me because I'm more important?
It's not done like that. I think the youth, I know the school guys where I work, the school guys upstairs and the youth aid team and the youth engagement team used to do a lot of work. They tried their hardest. It takes a long time to become a youth officer as well. There's a lot of hurdles and assessments you've got to jump through. They do their utmost best to try and prevent what's going on, and also work with them so that they can become better children and work in society. I think that's where a lot of our work gets done, and they're the ones that are trying to do their best.
You know, I know this is not your field, but you know, how can we stop the glam? I mean, the glamour of the gangs, you know, because they've got jewelry, they've got wealth, they've got power, they've got people fearing them. They walk around society as the king. Yeah. And these young people look up to them and go, wow, if only the day I can be as big and powerful as that.
Yeah, but in the end, it all comes tumbling down, doesn't it? If you watch the films, think of it. Honestly, think of it. My favourite film, and I will always say this is my favourite film, Goodfellas. What happens in the end of Goodfellas? You come on, you must tell me now.
I've never seen it.
You've never. Okay, well, you need to watch Goodfellas. It's a mobster film. In the end, he has to rat on all his friends unless he goes to prison. He ends up going into what's the police thing when you get protection. That's it. That one, I love. Legend, which is about the Cray twins. That they fall apart. Yeah. They fall apart. Scarface. Yeah. All of these films.
But these are films.
Yeah, but this also does a great portrayal about how quickly you can go up, but how quickly you can come down from these sorts of worlds as well.
Well, I just remember some of the Mafia Kings went to their grave wealthy, healthy, and look, the public loved them.
Yep. Okay.
Because they did so much good in their little society, and that's how people see the gangs. Yep. If you go to jail for your gang, maybe to take the heat off the boss man, I'll put my hand up. Yeah, I did it all. Your family's looked after like they live in a kingdom.
Yeah, but then the thing is, if you do something wrong, you're ousted for life. That's
more than that. You might be ousted for life. Yeah. You might be alive.
It's a cutthroat world, and you will always lose.